Hello everyone, Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, here with you today, and I want to talk about a really wonderful formulation that would be perfect for this time of year, and that is our InflamMune HX formula. Now this is a combination of a very unique omega-3 fatty acids, and oftentimes we go on and on about the importance of taking omega-3s, and obviously we know that's because Americans just don't take enough omega-3s in your diet on a regular basis. And we don't have to search too far. We can look at a typical fatty acid blood test result of an average American, and we see that that result is usually like a 20-to-1 ratio of your omega-6 to your omega-3, when it should be like a 4-to-1 or a 2-to-1. So having omega-3s in your supplementation routine is always going to be a good idea. But I wanted to focus in on InflamMune because first and foremost, we know that the unique form that the green lip mussel, which is what is contained in the InflamMune formulation, so the New Zealand green lip mussel is really very fascinating because it has a form of omega-3 that you don't find in fish oil or krill oil or flax. Flax has ALA. Your fish oil, krill oil have EPA plus DHA. Now the green lip mussel has its own unique fatty acid, which is called ETA. Now what's really fascinating about the ETA is the way in which the body absorbs it and utilizes it. And it almost works in a sense to kind of down-regulate certain genes that are responsible for driving up inflammation. So when we talk about inflammation in general, we know that omega-3s are very good at targeting that and easing inflammation. But we're looking at along the cyclooxygenase pathway, both COX-1 and 2, as well as the lipoxygenase pathway. But when we're using the ETA, now we're working not just within that cyclooxygenase and lipoxygenase pathway, but also perhaps we're dealing with the genetic drivers for inflammation, which is really quite fascinating. So this is why when people use green lip mussel formulations, not only do they get the benefit when it comes to the full spectrum that omega-3s give us, when it comes to healthy cholesterol, when it comes to easing inflammation in the setting of arthritis, we also see that with the green lip mussel, we are really packing this powerful punch. So we think about systemic inflammation, for example, we think about C-reactive protein. If you're using the green lip mussel, we see that CRP level go down in a very rapid fashion. And this is important because we don't want systemic inflammation. We know that that's the driver or the backbone to every single chronic disease out there. So what do? We take omega-3 fatty acids. So does this mean, oh, you shouldn't take fish oil or, oh, you shouldn't take krill oil? No, not at all. That's not what I'm saying. Because remember, each one of the sources of omega-3s has its own unique profile to it. So when we think about fish oil, for example, we know we're getting a high quantity of the omega-3 EPA and DHA per serving. When we look at krill oil, we're getting a lower amount of the total omegas. The EPA and DHA is lower, but we're also getting the benefit of phosphatidylcholines. We get that phospholipid, plus we get astaxanthin. So we're getting this powerful carotenoid. So you can see why all of the different omega-3s yield their own unique special qualities to them. So hence this takes us back to the InflamMune formulation and green lip mussel. So green lip mussel has this really unique omega-3, the ETA, which we think is really potentiating a whole heck of a lot of benefit when it comes to targeting your inflammation. So this makes sense. Why would we want to be utilizing this during cold and flu season? Well, we want to make sure that we don't have inflammation that's driving up in our respiratory system and our airways. This is really, really important. Think about your sinuses. Think about the bronchi themselves. So if we can really try to fast track that downregulation of inflammation, this is a good thing. Now this is partnered up with a really unique herb, and that is Perilla. Now the Perilla extract itself is very fascinating in terms of the way that it's been used. They have used this in Asian countries for hundreds of years. So the Perilla extract does many different things. And the reason why, because when we look at different plant-based nutrients, Perilla being one of them, we can see that there are multiple different constituents that are contained within them. So Perilla is no exception to this rule. We can see that the Perilla actually contains its own unique fatty acid profile. So we're getting even more of those omega-3s in that form of ALA. So that's your plant-based omega-3 fatty acids. But we also know that it has these really powerful constituents, things like rosmarinic acid. Well, we know something about rosmarinic acid. We know that that's very targeted towards histamine. We know that histamine is what drives our allergic response and can drive up inflammation, especially in our sinuses and our airways. So when you partner the two up, you've got the green lip mussel with that special ETA, you've got your Perilla extract, which has its own unique omega-3, plus it's got that rosmarinic acid and all of these other powerful antioxidants to fend off oxidative stress. It kind of makes sense. This would probably be a very good thing for me to consider to have during cold and flu season. Yes, it would be. But I also want to talk about how beneficial this can be if we're thinking about joint health. Because for many people, they may come into one of our locations and they pick up a bottle of the InflamMune saying, I just want to make sure that my lungs and my sinuses are all good during this time of year. And then they start to use it, and then they come back and say, this is just the wildest thing. But I used to have a lot of pain in my knee, and it seems to be dissipating. Well, think about part of the reason why that can be occurring. We look at the powerful antioxidants and that amazing nutrient spectrum that comes from the Perilla itself. So we're targeting oxidative stress, we're easing inflammation, and at the same time, we've got that power of the green lip mussel. So of course we can see how one would benefit in terms of targeting inflammation within our joint spaces. So while it is called InflamMune, because we're thinking inflammation and the immune system, I also want you to be aware of the fact that this is a really excellent choice for people who experience maybe pain within their hands, and this is oftentimes driven up and even worse in the cold months. So if you have knee pain, or you have carpal tunnel, or if you just have, just feel a little bit arthritic, then certainly looking at the InflamMune formulation would be quite advantageous. So go to our website, InViteHealth.com, and check out the InflamMune formula, and I will be back with you in a few more days to talk about more wonderful formulations available at InVite Health. Thank you.